Hi, thanks for joining me. There's so much information out there about SEO or search engine optimization. I come across people with an understanding of SEO that varies from either knowing nothing really about it to knowing just enough to be dangerous, as they say, but not really fully educated in it, of course, because it's not your business. It's not what you do for a living. So I figured it's time to give you a super simple breakdown of SEO and how it works and when it works and why it works. So Google, it's the World Wide Web of information at our fingertips. And in the realm of SEO, it's a database of recommendations. When we search for anything on Google, it searches its database and reveals to us what it thinks is most relevant to what we typed in. So for example, it could be fun things like, chocolate chip cookie recipe. Let's look this up. Chocolate chip cookie recipe. So it's going to pull up, the most relevant things to what it is that it thinks that we're searching for. Or, if we want to go do something fun, like, let's see, movie theater. It's going to pull up different things. There's cinema clock, Regal, AMC. It's going to show us these different places that we could go, different movies we could see. It could be educational things. If we want to see who's the president of the United States or who's been the president, it's going to show us all the answers to these things, and give us a history and some information, chronological lists, who's the current president, that type of thing. Let's see. Who's the savior of the world? Let's see what is going to show us for that. So there it is with Jesus, some information about, the Bible and Jesus and information, things like that. You could also look up things to help your business, like, best SEO services near me. So taking a look at that, there's an ad right here, but, what do you know? There's me right at the top. So it gives you some really good information. And so Google has this information out there for us to use, and we trust it. And we base our decisions off of what we're shown here in the search results. So when it comes to your business, you want Google to recommend to your customers your business when they search for what you have to offer for your services and products. So what we're going to cover here in this video with the super simple SEO, I am breaking it down for you. So we're going to go over the websites, brand, social media, backlinking, 301 redirects, Google Maps, ads versus SEO, and when you're going to see results. So first, let's talk about websites. Usually when a business starts, one of the first things that you do is you build a website. And in people's minds, if you don't have a website, then you're not really serious about your business. Whether you're trying to gain more customers from it or to simply have an online presence these days, it's vital to have a good looking website. And now there's a misconception out there that as long as you have an amazing website, you're going to get ranked at the top of page one. And many marketing companies use this as a pain point or a scare tactic to kind of get you to sign up for their services. You feel like you're being saved by having a fresh new website built by somebody who knows how to make it work for their SEO situation. And that's just not true. The majority of the time, the websites that I see look great, and they may need help getting finished out or getting it in good shape for SEO, but websites rarely need to be completely redone and overhauled. So what do good SEO companies look at to make sure that your website's in good shape? So let's take a look. So I pulled up a website that is pretty well built for SEO, just to give you a good example. I have no affiliation with this whatsoever. I looked at a good handful of websites to decide which one am I going to use as an example. So I'm just throwing this one out there. If you want to send me some other websites to look at and ask like, hey, is this a good one? Or if you want to send me yours, I can do a website audit of yours as well. But to take a look at this, one of the first things I always look for visually, we're going to go over visual and then I'll do a technical audit. But just looking at this, a visual, the top half of your page is the most important thing for people to see. It's the first thing that they see, your introduction. It has to answer all of their questions. Am I in the right place? Do you do what I'm looking for? And how can I contact you? So this includes, your brand name, your services, and your phone number. So you can see here, they have their phone number really standing out. Their theme is a blue color, But up here, you know, their phone number at the top of the page where people, okay, I'm going to go give these guys a call. It's really standing out with that different color right here for people to see. You can see in the header tags, it's got Florida, the locations. They decided to put their faces on here to build that familiarity, so you feel comfortable, you know who you're talking to. And then, you know, they have up here a pretty good menu. They have their different attorneys, their different practice areas, and they've broken it down within the different pages, so that's really good. And then the areas that they serve. They have the different city pages as well, so that's something, if you want to get that detailed with it and work on your rankings, you can definitely do that too. They have the call to action right here, which is really good. They've highlighted some of the services that they have to offer. You can see here, you know, people working in the office, a little bit about them, some trust badges, some positive reviews, and then, you know, breaking down their specialty with their phone number again, you know, just highlighting their services here. More reasons why people should like them. Again, breaking down the different areas. Pictures of their team here. Some content. So they have some good information. They've got a form here for people to fill out if you want to, and then the locations of their different offices, breaking that down. And then just a lot of good information, linking with some social media, things like that. So you have to have a good amount of content on your site so people can read and see visually and with words what it is that you have to offer. Their mind takes in all this information and makes decisions based on what they see. So it's important to have those things pop out to them, like your phone number, the call to actions, the highlighted services, those bread and butter things that you really want to sell on a regular basis that brings in that money consistently. So if you don't have these things, then it's not going to be as converting, because they could have easily just come in here and said, yeah, we're attorneys, here's the cities we do our business, and here's the services that we offer. But they expanded on it. So it made you build that trust a little bit, because they're more detailed about what they have to offer. They're more open about it. Let's talk about it. Let me share this information with you. So it makes you want to dig in a little bit deeper and get in touch with them. So visually, they have a pretty appealing site. Now, taking a look at the technical part of it, let's take a look at it. So it shows they scored 74 out of 100. Honestly, I've never seen anybody get a 100. So I'm not really going to go over like the technical stuff on their site, but kind of over technically what everyone should have on their site and make sure it's in good shape. So taking a look at this, you want to make sure that you have a good domain name, that it's in good shape, it's not blacklisted for any reason. It's good to have a favicon up here, like you can see theirs, so people can recognize your brand up in the tabs as they're searching and get back to your window to find you easily if they have to go search for something else. Your title and description is very important. What that does is it takes from whatever the first thing you say on your site, it's going to stick it in there. Whatever you type on your website, it's going to stick it in there. So you want to make sure you decide what you're telling Google that you should rank for. So you can see here, they chose keywords and their brand. So that's one of the best things that you can do for your title. And then in the description, this is what we do and this is where we do it. Write a compelling description using keywords intelligently. So talking about, you know, they're a law firm in Orlando and Florida, you know, their brand again. So if there's anything specific you want to highlight, you definitely want to put that in there for sure. On your images, when you upload an image, it creates its very own URL. So when you save it to your computer, you want to save it using a keyword and then upload it, because then it catches that keyword in the URL. And then you want to make sure that you're filling in the alt text. You always have to go back in and do this. It's not going to automatically do it for you, but you want to make sure that you have on here the keywords that people are searching for. So, you know, like for example, they put their brand, they keep putting the word icon in there. And this really confuses people, because a lot of people, they put titles, names, descriptions, and captions. And this is just to, alt text is to tell Google, when you tag your picture, you tell them, this is why I'm using this picture. This is what I'm trying to tell you. So you want to put keywords on there, like they have personal injury, car accident, divorce, trial lawyers, trial attorney, top car accident lawyer, you know, different things like that. So you want to make sure you get those keywords in there for what it is that you have to offer. You want to make sure you have header tags throughout your site. And a lot of people, you know, they just do things like very vague. So, you know, of course you're going to have those header tags like why choose us, our team, services, about us, things like that. But if you can get some header tags in there with those keywords to really make it stand out, you can definitely do that. Like they have locations here, so they want to, really target those different locations. And then they have, legal needs, things like that. So it would just be really good to get some of those keywords in there, because all of this is a shout out to Google. This is what I do, and this is where I do it. So when you're working on your site, that's what you need to keep in mind. That's what you're trying to tell Google. That's what you're trying to tell your customers. This is what I do, and this is where I do it. So that information gets across to Google, and then when your customers see it, it gets across to them. And then your content, a lot of people really get caught up on this. Google likes at least 1,500 words talking about that. This is what I do and where I do it. And a lot of people only put a few sentences on, or they'll just bullet point their services. They don't really talk about it, like a conversation, like if somebody says, hey, what do you do for a living? You don't just say roofing, accountant. You say, oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, well, what do you specialize in? Oh, well, I specialize in family services. I specialize in tax planning, tax prep, bookkeeping. There's a variety of different things, so you start to have a conversation about it. So that's kind of what you should do on your website. Make it an inviting and interesting and compelling conversation. Just think about when you're talking to somebody and they're asking what you do. That's what you put on your site, because a lot of people don't do that. So if you do and your competitors don't, that's going to help you outrank them. So you want to make sure that you're talking on your site and having that conversation with someone through your site to be able to pull in those rankings and also convert them into getting in touch with you. And you need to have a good ratio of, text versus images. You have to have that visual, so people can read what you do, but also see what you do, and they can take in all that information in their mind to understand that. You need to have a sitemap on your site so Google can crawl it and see, what all is on your site. What should you be ranking for? It's like a map, GPS. If they don't know how to get around your site and know what's on your site, it makes it a lot harder for you to get those rankings. Within your content, you need to be clear about what it is you have to offer. That's what this is talking about right here. Like, what did I say on my site? So sometimes people are vague, and you don't want to be vague. You want to be very clear about what it is that you do. So for example, like roofers, for example, so you don't just say, yeah, we're roofing contractors, well, be more specific. We do roof repair, we do insurance claims, we do damage restoration, hail damage for roofs, we do metal roofing, shingle roofing, solar panels. There's a huge variety of things that we do. So you want to make sure that you say those specific things on your site. Don't just be vague and just a blanket answer. Be specific, because like I said, it's a shout out. And if you don't say it on your site, you're not going to rank for it. So if it's really important to you, you want to make sure that it's there. And you want to make sure you have a good theme and template that's in good shape, no broken links or an outdated site. You want to make sure that you have an SSL certificate, and this is a security for your site. So, imagine, somebody asks you for a recommendation, hey, do you know a good babysitter? I need to go out, I got some plans with my friends or whatever, and I have to go out. Do you know a good babysitter that I could use? You're not just going to be like, hey, well, that lady looks nice over there. Why don't you go ask her? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to suggest someone, well, I know this person, they're very trustworthy, I trust them with my kids, things like that. Or if it's like a haircut, like, oh, I like your hair, where'd you get it done? You can just go wherever, whatever, just that place is right there across the street. Why don't you go there? You're not going to do that. You're going to suggest, because it's your friend, you want them to have a good haircut and be happy with it. You're going to say, oh, I went to this place. You should definitely go here and ask for this person, and they can really help you with that. So you're going to be very specific. And Google is the same way. When they give a recommendation, they're going to recommend at the top the places that they know to be the safest. So the farther down in the search results, the less safe it probably is for you to be. So like in those good neighborhoods, good safe neighborhoods versus the bad unsafe neighborhoods that you shouldn't really be driving through, so they're going to do the same thing. They're going to target and guide you to the most trusted sites, the trusted places. So if you don't have an SSL certificate, you're going to definitely be farther down in the rankings. So you want to gain that trust for sure. Your speed test, you want to make sure is in good shape. That's how fast is your site showing up. So when people visit it on the desktop, you want to make sure that it's loading really well. The rule of thumb is like 3 to 5 seconds. Is your site loading within a few seconds? Because people are super impatient these days. They want it right now. I want it to show up. I don't care if I have bad Wi-Fi. I don't care if I have one bar. It better show up, and if it doesn't, it's your fault. That's kind of how people look at things these days, and it's really crazy. But you just want to make sure that you have a fast loading site for people to be able to find you. So desktop, usually 3 to 5 seconds. Mobile friendliness, this particular audit kind of holds to that same thing. So sometimes it says it's in bad shape. But mobile friendliness, I see anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds sometimes for a site to load, depending on, your Wi-Fi, where you're at, that type of thing, because you're out in the world, out and about. So 10 to 15 seconds for mobile friendliness is not too bad. If it's a minute or two, that's definitely too long and you need to do something about it. Maybe compress your images. There's different ways you can do that. Make sure, do you have any long videos on there? Just different things that you can do to make it load faster. So if you need help with that, you can get in touch and we can take a look at that. And you want to make sure it looks nice. You want to make sure it looks good, when people are looking on their mobile devices. It just didn't load here. That's not a big deal. And then your social media, you want to make sure that you're linking back and forth with your social media. Linking back and forth with social media is pretty important. Google really loves social media. So, if people are talking about it, then it's pretty important, right? So putting the links on there that you're actively pursuing your customers, you're interacting with them, you're saying, here, check us out some more things, so getting your social media links on your site is really good, and putting your website link on that social media is really good as well. So there's several technical things to go over, and getting your website in good shape, this is not the only thing you need to do to be able to get those rankings for your customers, for your website. So you want to make sure that your website is in good shape. That's what people usually start with. So, just making sure it's visually and technically really well for SEO is, kind of the first step. But to compare, think of your website as equal to having a business card. You have an expensive, fancy one made up and you're proud of how it turned out. But if you keep it in your pocket and never give it to anybody, well, that's just the same as if you have a website, but you never do the SEO that needs to be done to make sure that people see it. So people get really confused by that. They're like, I have a great website. It's in good shape. I don't really need help with that. But that's not all SEO is. So you want to make sure you have a good site, but then you have to move forward with those steps to be able to get it ranked. So now let's talk about your brand. Now that we've got your website in good shape, what does it mean to have a good, strong online presence? Well, your brand is what defines your business. What's one of the first things that you do when you're new to the scene, right? You introduce yourself. You tell people, this is who you are, this is what you do, this is where you do it, and this is how you can reach me. So, what did you do when you first started your business? Well, you told people. You told your friends, your family, people you're acquainted with, so they would know that you're in business, that you exist, and that you could possibly start to get some customers. You laid the foundation of who you are. And then when you're in a group of people, you're usually mingling around, you give them your name, you tell them a little bit about yourself. And to build an online presence, you have to do the same thing for Google and for the people who search on Google. And the best way to do that is through social media. I mentioned earlier, Google loves social media. And they use it to see what people like, what they need, what their interests are. And if you're excited about something, you tell about it to as many people as you can, right? So these days when something's popular online, we say it's trending. It's talked about a lot. And the more people that know you, the more your name gets around, the more likely you are to be seen as an authority figure and trusted and experienced. And you're not really likely to listen to someone's opinion or advice that you never heard of, are you? So how do you accomplish this online? Well, there's over 500 different social media platforms. So I just wanted you to show you this site so you can see it. And the way that I do it is I set up around 200 brand name social media accounts. And it's not done to try to get customers to come through social media or you have to be busy on it all the time. This just introduces your brand name and your website to Google. It gives authority, relevancy, trust, and power to your website. Now, these are social signals that show Google that you're in business, that you're actively pursuing your customers. And many people only take up the time to open up just a few of the major ones like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. So in opening more, you're outdoing your competition, and Google views that you're valuable. You can't expect to get business if nobody knows that you're in business, right? You have to lay that strong foundation so that you can build on it. To another way of explaining how it works, imagine building a house. Well, you can't start putting up the walls or build a roof. You have to lay the strong foundation or the whole house is going to collapse. So having that strong presence around those 200 social media accounts linking to your site with your brand name and having that strong presence online is the equivalent of having a strong foundation. People skip over this vital step because it's time consuming and they don't understand the importance of making that strong connection. Well, I don't like social media. I don't want to be on it all the time. I don't want to deal with it. And that's not what you're doing. You're building a strong brand. and you're building that strong connection with Google and potential customers to create that brand recognition and familiarity and trust with a strong presence, just like these big brand names do. You know, we all know about them, but we still see their commercials, we still see their online presence because they're making that effort to reach out. So let's move on to social fortressing. You might remember I said a couple of times earlier that Google loves social media, and they use it to see what people like, what they need, what their interests are. And using social media is a way of giving social signals to Google so they can see what you should be ranking on page 1 for. Now we can use it to target specific keywords that you want your customers to know about. You connect a service or product with what you have to offer with your website on social media. It's one way of telling Google what your website should rank for. And when Google sees a keyword in relation with your website on social media, it sees that your website is valuable and sees that you should be in the search results for that keyword. It's like networking. The more people you tell about it, the more word spreads, the more people hear about you and what you do. So this is how I set them up. I set up an email, preferably using a Gmail, and open it with a keyword rather than your brand or your name. And then the accounts opened up using that keyword, so Google sees the profile links with the keywords in them. So you set up the different social medias and you put the keyword in there for what it is that you want to target within the name and within the content. And I do this each month, and I do it with a different keyword every time, because it tells Google all these different keywords that you should be ranking for. And just like all those big brands that we know, this is one step to create that brand recognition, familiarity, and trust with that strong presence and those keywords that you want to rank for. So now let's talk about backlinking. There's a lot of information about this, and it can be very confusing. We've heard of backlinking. We know it's a way of linking sites together in some way, and somehow this helps. So let's break it down. What is a backlink? Or in other words, a referring domain? It's a reference given from another link, just like a reference from a person, right? A backlink, to put it plain and simple, is a website that Google considers to have power and authority. It trusts it because it mentions your website in reference to a keyword that's on it. It believes that your website is also powerful and has authority. So it should show up in the search results when somebody types in that particular keyword on Google. So for example, like Google trusts this site, and because there's a keyword that's linking to your site on it, the power and trust with this site, it also thinks that your site has power too. So let's back up. Let's say you need or want something and you're not sure where to get it from. And if somebody doesn't point you in the right direction, you don't know enough to make an informed decision, you're not really going to get anywhere, right? So what do? Well, you start talking amongst other people and somebody says, "Oh, I know somebody." Well, how did you get this information? Is it valid? Is it informed? Did this person refer you to someone that even knows really what you're talking about? Like, who are you going to listen to, right? Well, let's say we come across the President of the United States, and whoever that is at the time, right? And he says, "Oh, I know just the one. You should check out this guy. This sounds like just like what you're looking for." And you're like, "Well, okay, Mr. President, you're educated. You're in a position of power and authority. Yeah, I'll take a look at it and I'll check it out." Versus a stranger on the street that doesn't look at all like what they know what they're talking about. You wouldn't really value their opinion very highly, would you? So let's compare the scenario to backlinking. A backlink is a reference for your website. So you do a search online for something you need or want, and Google goes out in the World Wide Web looking for references for that inquiry. And there's no references, no social media, no backlinking to point it in the right direction, then your search results are going to come up bare with things that are not really relevant. It doesn't really give you the answers that you're hoping for. But on the other hand, if Google goes on a search and finds some websites that have social media, it has backlinks, it then determines it should be recommended to you and end up in your search results or not. Now, Google looks at the backlinks that are referring to you and determines, is this a reference coming from authority? Does it have power? Does it have trust? Does it have value? Does it mention what you're looking for with that keyword that you typed into the search? Or is it not really relevant? It really isn't talking about what you search for. It just happens to kind of mention your website, not with any real value. There's no keyword attached there. Search for it just really has no power or authority. It's just, attached to you for some reason. So if your website gains more and more powerful, trusted, authoritative website links and more and better rankings you're going to have with more authoritative links and power to it. Whereas if your website has weak, not relevant, spammy backlinks, then your website's going to be easily outranked if it gets ranked at all, and even worse, penalized. And then if you don't do SEO and you have no linking, no social media, you're not going anywhere. Your website is just lost out there in the World Wide Web. So one question people ask me sometimes is, are backlinks still relevant and useful for SEO? And the answer is yes. And the reason people are saying that is because they've experienced disappointing results with bad backlinks. I have very powerful and useful backlinks. Now, backlinks, they have to be used, nurtured, and grown to continue to be powerful and strong. And if you have backlinks that are not working, they're most likely not taken care of and they're dying away themselves. It's like that situation when a person is drowning and panicking, they're pulling you down with them. So you want to make sure you have those strong, powerful backlinks backing up your site. Now, there's also 301 redirects. They're very similar to how backlinking works. It's powerful domains that forward to your website. Now, Google sees that powerful domain and that it leads to your website. So Google sees all that power and authority that domain has as if it's your domain and website. It has authority, trust, power, and relevancy, and it's showing that reflection of that power and trust on your site. And it goes along the same lines. If it's, if you're linking with weak or spammy links, then your website's going to be easily outranked if it gets ranked, or like I said, at worst, penalized. And then if you don't have any forwarding domains, well, you're really not going anywhere, or at the very least, it'll take you a lot longer to get there. Now let's talk about Google Maps. It's a very useful and powerful tool that you can use to get rankings and reach out to customers. Now, Google studies how people search online on a continual basis, and they found that about 50% of the people that search online look at the Google Maps, 40% look at the organic search results, and only 10% of the people actually click on the ads. It's vital to make sure that you have your Google Map listing and that it's a strong profile, you have a good description, the information's all filled in correctly, and it's a vital step because it gives your brand and your website recognition, trust, and relevancy with Google as well as with your customers. And having a powerful website that's strong with SEO works hand in hand with showing Google who you are and what you should be ranking for. And it's similar, how you get your website in good shape. So you want to make sure that you have that strong, powerful Google Map listing as well. Now, let's talk about Google Ads versus SEO. So let's go over this. There's pay-per-click Google Ads, and that's not the same as SEO or search engine optimization. Pay-per-click, PPC, Google Ads, that's when you pay Google to run an ad in the Google search results. You run an ad to try to target customers that are searching for what you offer, and you have to pay Google each time somebody clicks on your website, whether they're a lead or a customer or not. And sometimes you just pay for it to show up, whether anybody sees it or not. And it's a bidding process. The more you pay, the higher Google's going to rank your ad and the more times it's shown. And your ad might not show up on page 1. If you have a smaller budget than your competition, or if Google just feels like you're not paying them enough, you could be paying for your ad to show up on pages 2 and 3. And I've seen as far back as page 8. So I hear many people are disappointed and disheartened at the outcome. And which is why SEO is so much more better. It gets you ranked in the search results naturally, so you don't have to keep paying for those ads each time somebody's searching and clicking on your website, or that you're just showing up as an option to see there on the ads. You don't have to run out your budget trying to outbid other ads, and your rankings last with SEO. SEO is not as limited as Google Ads. SEO can get you on page 1 for multiple keywords and give you a strong brand and strong presence online, which is vital these days to draw in these customers. You have to be consistent. When are you going to see results? Well, the big question is, and I think I can put it in terms for you to understand, you really have to be consistent. SEO has to be done on a regular basis. Otherwise, your rankings are not going to happen like you want them to. You have to keep it fueled up to keep that SEO going, to keep the rankings growing more. And I thought this is a really good visual. Let's compare it to climbing a mountain. It takes strength and trust and teamwork, all the SEO, all the different things to do to climb up to the top. All of the social media, the backlinks, pulling your website up to the top of the mountain, ranking you for multiple keywords. You have to stay consistent. If you start and stop, do it for a little bit and then you take some breaks, or you just quit altogether, all the progress that you made is going to be lost and your rankings are going to fall, and then you have to start the process all over again. So if you're going to invest in it, you have to have a basic understanding of SEO and when you're going to see results. So let's take a look at this. We're going to take a look at maps. You have to consider how much effort you're going to put into your rankings. How are you going to get them to go from where you're at to your destination to get to the top of the search results? And you have a few different options. So, let's say we're going from Orlando to California. We're trying to get across the United States. So this is how well you're going to work on your SEO, right? So this is the best kind of mental way visual way I could get to show you. So there's a few different ways that you could do this route, right? You could walk, which would take the longest for you to get there, right? You could do your bicycle. You could ride a bus. You could drive a car, or you could fly. So the amount of effort that you put into your SEO is how fast you're going to see results to get there, right? So you have to understand that the way that your consultant works on your SEO is going to reflect the results. So as you climb up in the rankings, it's comparable, let's say, to driving a car. So let's take a look at that real quick. So let me pull up how it would be if you're going to drive your car. So when you pull up your map and you see the route that you're going to go on, usually it shows you, like the green roads when it's clear and you're going to get there fast. Sometimes it's yellow and you're going to slow down a little bit. There's going to be some people in the lane next to you driving, that's like your competition. Like they inch ahead, you inch ahead, and you go back and forth a little bit because you're both working on getting to the same. So let's take a look at the map here. So, with SEO, people have different ways of doing it. So, there's some different routes to get to where you're going, right? If you're starting at Orlando, you're getting to Los Angeles. So it depends on how fast you work, on how much work you put into it, how much effort you put into it, on how quickly you're going to get there, and road bumps along the way. So taking a look at it, when you pull up your map, a lot of times it's going to show you, green, and that means like the roads are clear, you're going to get where you're going easily and fast. Sometimes it's yellow, which means there's some road bumps. There's things that are going to slow you down a little bit. And if you think about traffic as you're driving, you're driving along, you're doing fine, and then you come to kind of slow down a little bit. And sometimes the people in the lanes next to you, that's your competition, right? So sometimes they're going to inch ahead of you, and then you're going to inch ahead of them, and you kind of do this back and forth a little bit. And you're thinking, oh, I hope I get there faster than they do. I hope they don't get in front of me. That's kind of how it is with your competition. So as your rankings are fluctuating and climbing up in the search results, it's kind of doing the same thing. Your competitors are working on SEO too. So it's not just you climbing up and leaving everybody behind. You're all working on it. So you're going to see your rankings fluctuate just like you see traffic fluctuate. And sometimes it's red and you're stuck there for a little bit before you get to move. But you're going to get to where you're going. It can be faster or slower, and there's some back and forth going along as you go. Now consider your mode of transportation. And this is a reflection of how much work you're going to put into it and when you're going to see those results. Because a lot of people are really confused about, okay, I'm doing SEO. I expect to be ranked tomorrow. You started working on this for me a month ago, and I decided I want to go with a smaller plan, or even if you do a faster plan, maybe other people are also working very hard on the SEO on their end, and they're working on a hard plan and putting a lot of work into it. So it's pretty competitive to climb up. So just thinking about it, I think, let's see, to get to Orlando, it takes 40 days to walk. So if you're going to choose a slower plan, you're barely going to work on it. You're not really going to put a lot of effort. It's going to take a while to get you there, right? So there's that. If you're going to bike, if you're like, I'll put a little bit of effort into it, it said it'd take you about 9 days. So it's going to take a while, and then you could take a bus. You could go a little bit faster. It'll take days. And then if you take a car, you could get there in hours. And then if you fly, you're there the same day, right? That's like the best SEO. You're putting all your effort into it and you're going to see those results. Well, that's how it is with SEO. It's really going to determine on the amount of effort, the care, the work that you put into it on when you're going to see results. Now, if you have a brand new site, it can take a little bit longer because it's like you're the new kid to the scene. Google's got to get to know you and decide, okay, I trust you, you're relevant. I've known these people for a while already. I trust them already, so they've already got some rankings. So I'm going to have to get to know you a little bit, and then we'll let you climb your way up to page 1. So you kind of have to think about it in ways of, friendships and relationships. And I know it sounds silly to do with Google. It's a robot, right? But you've got to determine how well are you going to present yourself to get those page 1 rankings and how much effort you're going to put into it. Now, if you've got some rankings and you're not too far back, you're maybe on pages 2, 3, 4, within the top 5 pages maybe, it could take just a few months for you to get some page 1 rankings. Now, if it's super competitive, if you're going after something really competitive and you have your, other people are working on their websites and getting rankings and things, then, it could be very competitive and take a little bit longer. But it can usually take about 3 or 4 months. If you're kind of moderate about it, like you're not a slow poke about it, but you're also not totally gung-ho about it, you're just kind of in between, like, yeah, whatever, let's work on it, then it could take, 5 or 6 months or so for you to get some page 1 rankings. So a lot of people expect it to be like, back in the day, you run an ad in the newspaper, it shows up that next day. There's your ad right on whatever page you paid for it to be on, right? And people kind of have that same thing in Google Ads, but that's not how Google Ads work. Hopefully you're kind of figuring that out, that it takes time to get those as well. Like I talked about earlier, get those ads ranking for you. But SEO, it takes time, but the value there is definitely worth it to get the effort put into it. How much effort you put into it is how much you're going to get out of it. So I hope this has given you a breakdown of SEO and put it in some super simple terms for you. And you're welcome to reach out to me anytime if you have any further questions, or if you want to inquire about your website and your rankings, or what I can do for you. You're welcome to use my Zoom calendar link to pick a day. If you want to pick a day and time to meet up face to face on Zoom, I'd be happy to do that. You're also welcome to call. So thank you for joining me today. And before I let you go, I have to say, I hope you know that Jesus loves you. God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. And if you need prayer, encouragement, or just want to talk more about Jesus, I'd love to do that too. So I pray you have a blessed day.